Hey everybody, it's Bob Crossan, Senior Managing Editor for Water and Waste Digest, and throughout the rest of the year, we will be featuring our WWD top projects in video format. So today I have with me John Keller. He is Senior Project Manager for Black & Veatch. I also have Mike Kalis. He's Senior Project Manager for HDR. And lastly, we have Tammy Lorenzen. She is Assistant Chief Engineer for Integrated Planning with the Johnson County Wastewater. So yeah, thank you all for being on the call today, and congratulations on winning one of our top projects this year. Could you tell me a little bit more about Tomahawk Creek wastewater treatment facility, like its history and whatnot?
Sure. So I'll start. We've had a facility at the location of the Tomahawk facility since about the mid 50s. And it just over time, we had various improvements to it. At one point, the decision was made to stop expanding the treatment facility, and there was a large interceptor that was constructed that went on to a neighboring utility at Kansas City, Missouri. And so we were sending a portion of the flow to them for treatment and paying for that service. And over time, we decided that we had aging assets and we knew we needed to do something. And we made the decision to evaluate whether it made sense to continue having a facility there or whether we should, continue with that split flow or eliminate the facility altogether. And we found that long-term, it was going to be most economical for us to stop sending a portion of the flow to the Kansas City side, and we would treat all of it. So it really became a decision when we really looked at the age of the assets, a lot of it came from the 60s, and so the decision was made basically to do almost an entire wholesale rehabilitation and renovation of the entire facility on the site.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the things that we noticed with this project too, and was brought out, was the construction manager at risk was used for this project. Could you talk a little bit about why that route was chosen for this project over other delivery methods?
Sure. We knew early on that we wanted to do alternative delivery because we knew this was going to be a significantly larger project than what we'd ever done. And we wanted to be able to select a team based more on qualifications and not just the lowest price. We also wanted alternative delivery because we wanted to be able to get input and collaboration with the contractor during design on sequencing and constructability and other thoughts like that. Plus, we had already hired an engineering team of Black & Veatch and HDR to assist us with the permitting because we had some new technical aspects we wanted to incorporate that we needed to get the permitting negotiated first with the regulators. And so we didn't want to start over again, reselecting a whole team. So we had previously done a CMAR project and we're comfortable with it. And so we decided to go forward with that.
Gotcha. So one of the primary aspects that we found really interesting about this too was the effect of weather on this project. It was one of the wettest seasons you had, and you had to divert interceptors during that time. Could you talk a little bit more about that aspect of the project and the tower cranes, why those were so effective, and how you guys managed to keep on target with construction despite all of these challenges kind of mounting outside of your control?
Well, the use of tower cranes, the contractor planned to use tower cranes. And really it was a great idea. During the past year, we had the wettest calendar year in Kansas, and it allowed the contractor to continue, even though we'd received a ton of rain in Kansas. They were able to manage their work, and actually after we received tremendous amount of rain during the week, they were able to work the next day and keep on schedule. So yes, they had rain days, but they were able to start up the next day and continue pouring. So once they had a good foundation, they were able to pour the walls the next day and to keep on pace. With the wet ground, they would have been struggling with, rubber tired cranes to get around the site. So allowed the contractor to not have the big impacts that would have delayed the progress even more. And that was a big driver in the project, is we had a schedule completion that we still need to maintain and just let them keep going on to meet the end date of substantial completion.
Mm-hmm. What about diverting the water through the interceptors and whatnot? What kind of challenges did that pose to the project?
One of the first things that we had to do on the project was to divert all the flow to Kansas City, Missouri, as Tammy just talked about. So there was a big maintenance of plant operations, a MOPO, that we diverted all the flow, and the contractor worked with the engineering team and Johnson County Wastewater to really decommission the plant and divert all that flow. So they worked around the clock over a weekend to set manhole and divert all flow. By the putting all the maintenance of plant operations together, they were able to divert the flow, allowed them to able to decommission the plant and really work on the plant all at one time, and that allowed them to meet their construction schedule.
Yeah. The floodplain was also something that was mentioned in the nomination form here. Could you talk about the floodplain challenges, and then how that there was something about the fill not being suitable as well? Could you talk a little bit about the soil quality there?
Yeah, I can take that one. The plant is situated at the confluence of two creeks, Indian Creek and Tomahawk Creek, and it's basically in the floodplain, and there's no other land around there. It's pretty much developed, so that was the only place to build. And in order to make the site accessible and operable during floods, we had to raise the site up above the floodplain, which meant raising it 5 or 6 feet by bringing in dirt. Well, initially we intended to use dirt that's excavated for the structures to provide that fill, so we would have what's called a balanced job, where the amount of dirt we dug out of the structure locations would be used to build the fill up. As we got to excavating, we found out that Indian Creek had been diverted many years before, and the old stream channel ran right through the heart of the plant. And when it had been filled in, it had been filled in with things like tree trunks and brush and other kinds of debris that wouldn't be suitable to use for fill to raise the site up. So that actually had to be hauled off site to a landfill and good dirt brought in. And that was an exercise that we managed in an ongoing process with the contractor, keeping track of truckloads for payment purposes and so forth. That was a team effort that got that unexpected challenge taken care of without compromising the schedule.
Yeah, it seems anytime you do some digging, you're always bound to find something surprising. So what are the, like, again, about the digging aspect, there was an element with the bedrock elevation too that was supposedly a little bit of a challenge. What was going on with that aspect of this project, and how did you overcome that?
So we did have at the beginning of the project, we did have a geotech come out and drill out where all the borings were. So we did have a pretty good idea where the shelves of the bedrock was. And as Tammy talked about, we did hire the contractor and we worked with them during design. So we worked on the structures and the various foundations. We had structures that were above the bedrock. We had structures that were in the bedrock, and we try to figure out the best approach for each of the structures. So we have 3 different types of foundations: sitting on the bedrock, partially in the bedrock, and then piers in the bedrock. So we designed for that, and it was just working with the contractor to get the best solution, the best cost for the county, and that's how we approached it. And it was working with the contractor to get the best possible cost.
Yeah. So like, on the front of that cost aspect, it sounds like there were some, obviously you had to do some things kind of on the fly a little bit. How did you manage that the aspect of cost and still returning the end goal for the county?
Well, one of the things that we did do allowed was blasting on the site. Originally, we didn't have that intended in the project, but the contractor provided a cost benefit both on a schedule and a savings to the project, and that will allow them, again, on that bottom, the substantial completion date where there was a lot of risk. And so we evaluated to the benefit to the project and to allow them to get into the bedrock quicker. So that's how we looked at the project, the changes that we made on throughout the project.
Gotcha. And then the final thing that I wanted to touch on too was like the workforce element that was listed in this as well. How'd you overcome like workforce issues? I know that there was some discussion in the nomination form also about getting people even to get on site as well. Could you talk a little bit about why that was a little bit of a challenge and how you overcame that overall?
Sure. I can take that one. So the construction manager that we hired, that was McCarthy. So they were aware going into the project that there were some other large projects going on in the Kansas City area. The county was also constructing a new courthouse, so we had that. And the international airport is getting a total renovation, and that was a very significant construction project too. So they were already aware that that was something that they needed to manage well in order for the project to be successful. So basically between that and, just information that they already knew about a shortage of craft workers nationally, they worked closely with the local labor unions to satisfy the needs of Tomahawk. So there was a lot of collaboration and discussion with them. Where we did occasionally find ourselves falling short on a particular trade, they were able to overcome that by utilizing craft workers from some of the regional offices that they have across the country. So, when needed to keep the project on schedule, they could bring in some supplemental labor, but definitely they put a lot of effort first to making sure that we could use the local labor.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Well, I do
Yeah.
appreciate you guys all taking the time to talk a little bit more about this project with me today. Congratulations once again. And to everyone else who's watching, stay tuned next week for another interview on Tuesday.